clear? All right, so y equals sine theta plus pi over 3. You have to decide whether you want to do the straightforward part first or the more challenging part first. We're going to show it to you both ways. So if we look at number 1, y equals sine theta plus pi over 3. Now, in your head, we are going to take this expression and set it equal to 0. Theta is your variable, it's just like x. Pi over 3 is a constant, just like a number. How would I get rid of a plus pi over 3? Subtract. So your left endpoint is 0 minus pi over 3, which is negative pi over 3. When this has no coefficient, it will just be the opposite. When that has no coefficients, like when you solve a quadratic. Same way if I go over here. What's the opposite of negative pi over 3? Pi over 3. That's going to be my left endpoint. Alright? So I go to my graph, and there's no rule that says you have to come over here to make it negative. I don't care. Alright? So if you want to go here with your graph, go right ahead. It doesn't matter to me. So that's negative pi over 3. Alright? Now I go back and I look at my variable once again. It has no coefficient, so that means my period is 2 pi. My period is 2 pi. Alright? So basically, to get my right endpoint, I'm going to take negative pi over 3, and I'm going to add the 2 pi. Well, this goes back to coterminal angles. Whenever we added 2 pi, we just doubled the denominator and added it. My denominator is 3. Double 3 is 6. So I'm going to add 6 to negative 1. That gives me 5 pi over 3. Alright? Now, my midpoint. I'm going to ignore the pi's and the 3's at first. I'm just going to look at 5 and negative 1 and find the average. To get the average, we just add up and divide by 2. 5 plus negative 1 is 4. Half of 4 is 2. So that would become 2 pi over 3. Okay? Now I got to get my first quarter point and my third quarter point. I'm going to do the same thing, but here's the small thing that comes up. 2 plus negative 1 is 1. Odd. So I'm not going to divide that by 2. When I have an odd number as a result, instead of dividing by 2, I'm going to double my denominator. So that's going to give me pi over 6. And the same thing for my third quarter point. 2 plus 5 is 7. Again, that's odd, so I'm just going to write the 7 pi and put it over 6. Alright? Now, the amplitude is 1. There's no number in front. So that's my 1 and my negative 1. That's my 1 and negative 1. Alright? It's a sine graph, so sine starts at 0, midway is 0, ends at 0. There's no negative involved, so my first quarter point's at the max, third quarter point's at the min, and I have that. Then all I would ask you to do is create the second cycle. I would once again add 6 pi to the numerator. That would give me 11 pi over 3. Alright. Another halfway point brings me back to 0. The quarter points to the max and min. And I'm all done. And that's it. Before moving on, everybody good? Alright, now again, if you want to deal with the vertical axes last, that's perfectly fine. So I'm looking at you, number 3. Y equals 1/2 cosine theta plus pi over 2. Y equals 1/2 cosine theta plus pi over 2. So this is what I mean by it. So here's my cosine graph. The amplitude is now 1/2. So I got 1/2 here, negative 1/2 there. All right? I know that cosine starts at the max and ends at the max. Halfway through it's at the min, quarter points it's at the zero. I can sketch that out if I want. So I have the structure of my graph. Alright, come out here, put my second endpoint, halfway is my min, and I can do my graph first should I choose. Okay, so you can do that part first if you want. So it's up to you how you want to handle it. Okay, so now again, there's no coefficient here. Alright, so what's the opposite of plus pi over 2? Negative pi over 2. Negative pi over 2. I'm then going to add 2 pi to that to get my first endpoint. Double 2, you get 4. This becomes 3 pi over 2. That becomes 3 pi over 2. To get my halfway point, I add negative 1 plus 3 is 2. Half of 2 is 1. So this would be 1 pi over 2 or just pi over 2. Since these are opposites of each other, they cancel out. Halfway between them would be 0. Now when I come here, 1 plus 3 pi is 4 pi. Half of 4 pi is 2 pi. So this becomes 2 pi over 2 or just pi. Add it again to get your second cycle end, and you got 7 pi over 2. All right. So again, all we're adding there, we got some amplitude to the first part, and we're shifting over. All done? I'm going to try to grade it this weekend. Good try. Not making any promises. See you later. Have a good weekend. All right. So now I'm going to go down to number 5. Because for the first time, I have a coefficient. All right. So either in your head or on paper, you're going to take that expression 4 theta plus pi over 3 and set it equal to 0. We would subtract the pi over 3 from both sides. 4 theta equals negative pi over 3. Divide by 4, and you finally get negative pi over 12. Now, hopefully, after practicing for the next few days, you realize that this is just the opposite of the constant divided by the coefficient each and every time. So you can just take the opposite of whatever number is being added and subtracted and divide by whatever the coefficient is. All right? But again, if you got to do that, go right ahead. So that means I'm starting at negative pi over 12. So I'm starting at negative pi over 12. All right? Got an amplitude of 1, so I'm going to put the 1 there, the negative 1 there. Okay? Now I got to figure out my period. I now have a coefficient of theta, 4. So remember, that's always 2 pi divided by that coefficient. 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2. 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2. So I'm going to add pi over 2 to negative pi over 12. Pi over 2 is 6 pi over 12. So my right endpoint, that we'll elaborate more on Monday, is 5 pi over 12. And then my second cycle is going to end at 11 pi over 12. Alright. First halfway point. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4. Half of 4 is 2. So I'm going to write that down here, though. 2 pi over 12. I'm going to lower that a little bit. Because 2 pi over 12 should simplify down to what? Pi over 6. Now, if on Friday's last quiz of the marking period, you don't do that. You leave it as 2 pi over 12. And you do that on every problem. You're going to lose 1 total point on the entire quiz. Now, so if you leave that as 2 pi over 12 and do that in the entire quiz, 1 total point. Not 1 for each problem, 1 total point. Because that's very insignificant in terms of what we're trying to learn here. Alright? But yes, it should be reduced down to pi over 6. Now, when I come over here, I'm trying to find halfway to here. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. I can't do half of 1, so I've got to multiply my denominator by 2. That's going to give me a first quarter point of pi over 24. That's why I'm making this so small, because it's probably a lot easier to work with 2 pi over 12 than the pi over 6. And the same thing over here. 2 plus 5 is 7. Again, odd, so I double the denominator, and I got 7 pi over 24, rather than 3.5 pi over 12. Alright. It's a cosine, so I'm going to start at the max. I'm going to end at the max. Halfway through is going to be the min. Quarter points are my zeros. Boom. Second cycle ends at 11 pi over 12. That halfway point is where my min's going to be. I'm going there. Seem good? All right. Number 8. Y equals 1/2 sine 2 theta minus 2 pi over 3. Absolutely. 2 theta minus 2 pi over 3 equal to 0. 2 theta equals 2 pi over 3. Divide by 2. Theta equals pi over 3. So that's my left endpoint. So that's my left endpoint. All right. All right. My period has everything to do with that coefficient too. So I'm going to do 2 pi divided by 2. 2's cancel out. Gives me a period equal to pi. Gives me a period equal to pi. Since the period, yes sir.
There's only the opposite with no number in front.
2 pi equals 2 pi over 2 theta. Oh, so theta's, oh, sorry, I wrote that, so this is it. Sorry. My bad. I wrote down the wrong one. You're right. So just pi over 3. You're right. I apologize. Thank you. So my period is pi. So I'm going to add 3 pi over 3 to that. That's going to give me 4 pi over 3. Halfway, 1 plus 4 is 5. Odd number. So I write the odd number. Double my denominator is 6. Quarter point, all right, pi over 3 is 2 pi over 6. 2 plus 5 is 7. So once again, I got an odd number. So I double the denominator and I got 12. Same thing here. 8 pi over 6 plus 5 pi over 6 is 13 pi over 6. Divide by 2 by doubling the denominator, and I got 13 pi over 12. The difference with this one is I don't have an amplitude of 1. I have an amplitude of 1/2. So I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to label them 1/2 and -1/2. My left endpoint was the pi over 3, so that's going to be a 0. The right endpoint, 4 pi over 3 is going to be a 0. 5 pi over 6 is a 0. No negatives are involved, so that's a maximum. That's a minimum. And then I'm going to add pi to 4 pi over 3, which means I'm adding the denominator. So I got 7 pi over 3. Halfway, I would label that to make sure you come back there. And we got that. Okay? So to finish up for today, please just work on number 7.